The lock didn't fit. My own house, my husband's house, wouldn't let me in. Through the window, I saw strangers walking on our floors, laughing where his voice used to echo. A sign on the lawn said, "Open house, Sunday." That was when I realized my daughter had sold it. The home my late husband built with his bare hands, gone because they decided I was too old to deserve it. I stood in the rain, clutching the same key I'd held for 40 years, and felt like a guest in my own life. If you've ever been treated like your love, your labor, or your loyalty didn't count, this story is for you. Tell me where you're watching from. If this story makes you angry, comment 1. If it breaks your heart, leave a like. The rain smelled like pine and rust. Thomas loved that smell. He said it meant the earth was breathing. He built this house, plank by plank, on his weekends, every nail pressed in with care. Now, I was just watching a realtor prop the door open for strangers, as if it were a showroom. I knocked on the glass, too stunned to shout. The young man in a suit turned, startled. "Ma'am, are you here for the open house?" My throat closed. "No," I whispered. "I'm here for my home." He blinked, checked his clipboard. "Owner on record is Reed Holdings, LLC. That name hit me like cold air in my lungs. Reed, my son-in-law's last name. I stared at the realtor, then at the people roaming through my living room. A couple was admiring the old fireplace Thomas had built himself. I could see the faint crack in the mortar that looked like a smile. Thomas used to joke it gave the house character. That crack was still there, but the warmth was gone. I pressed my palm against the doorframe, tracing the small dent where Thomas had dropped his toolbox the first day he moved in. Every mark, every imperfection, had been a part of our marriage story, and now they were selling it off by the square foot. A car slowed on the road. It was Ruthie, my neighbor. She rolled down her window halfway, then hesitated, eyes darting to the realtor. She looked away before I could wave. That hurt worse than the rain. She knew. Everyone must have known. Inside, a woman's laugh, bright, fake. Realtor's laughter cut through the air. "This property will close fast," she said. "Escrow's already open. Just 72 hours until closing." 72 hours. That's all I had before my husband's name disappeared from that deed forever. The realtor turned to me again. "Ma'am, if you'd like a showing." "I don't need a showing," I said. My voice surprised me. It didn't tremble. "I need my life back." "Oh," he frowned, unsure whether to pity me or call security. I walked around to the back porch. The wood creaked under my shoes, just like it used to when Thomas came in with muddy boots. The flower beds were trampled, and the old wind chime, a gift from him on our 30th anniversary, hung broken. One bell missing. On instinct, I reached for the spare key hidden under the third step. Gone. The space was empty. My hand found instead a thin piece of metal, Thomas's old safe key, engraved with his initials. T.C. My heart stuttered. He always said, "If you ever need to find the truth, Evie." It's locked where love began. I had laughed back then. Now it felt like a riddle from the grave. I pocketed the key and turned toward the garage window. Through the glass, I saw boxes stacked with my handwriting, Christmas, wedding china, Thomas's tools. None of it had been moved yet. My memories were waiting to be auctioned off. As I watched, a flash of silver on the kitchen counter caught my eye, a stack of legal papers in a clear sleeve. I recognized the top line, transfer of property, temporary power of attorney. My chest tightened. That was my signature, or something that looked like it. Lightning flickered behind me. For a moment, the reflection in the glass showed me, as I really was, gray hair plastered to my face, hospital bracelet still faint on my wrist, and eyes hollow with disbelief. I stepped back into the rain, gripping the key so tightly my palm ached. The realtor was already showing the upstairs. The strangers laughed again, and I could almost hear Thomas's voice behind the noise. "Don't let them take what we built." "Evie." "Oh." I didn't even realize I'd started talking out loud. "They already did. Tom. Oh, the rain fell harder. I walked toward the mailbox, the one he'd painted blue, because he said it reminded him of my eyes. Inside were 3 unopened envelopes bills. Probably. But one was from the county clerk's office. I tore it open. Notice of escrow closure. Sale to be finalized in 72 hours. That was the moment the disbelief turned into fury. I wasn't senile. I wasn't weak. And I wasn't about to let my husband's memory become someone else's down payment. When Thomas died, Melissa told me, "Mom, don't worry. We'll take care of everything." She said it like comfort, but it was a promise she kept in the wrong way. They took care of everything. My house, my papers, my freedom to decide. I turned toward the street. My daughter's SUV was parked there, spotless, like a trophy. She wasn't home, but I could almost hear her voice. At your age, stability matters more than ownership. Oh, stability. That's what they called it when they sold the roof over my head. I could have screamed. Instead, I breathed. The cold air filled my lungs like medicine. If they thought I'd fade quietly, they forgot who Thomas married. He didn't build this house for a woman who breaks easily. I wiped the rain from my face and looked at the windows glowing from inside. My home. My memories. My mistakes all reflected back at me. Somewhere behind those walls was a truth they didn't want me to find, and I had 72 hours to uncover it. I turned to the for sale sign, yanked it out of the ground, and laid it flat on the wet grass. My reflection shimmered in the puddle beside it. The woman staring back was no longer helpless. On the flyer taped to the sign, small letters bled under the rain. Escrow opened. Closing date, 72 hours. I whispered, steady as stone. Not if I close it first. At your age, stability matters more than ownership. My daughter said, and the word ownership sliced deeper than any scalpel. By the time I pulled into her driveway, the porch lights were already glowing that cool, expensive white. The rain had thinned to a mist, the kind that makes the world look polished and far away. Inside, I could hear a playlist of soft piano and clinking glasses, the soundtrack of a life that didn't need me. I held the key with Thomas's initials in my pocket until the edge pressed a half moon into my palm. I didn't want to show up shaking. Melissa opened the door with a smile that never touched her eyes. Her lipstick was the same careful rose she wore to job interviews and funerals. "Mom, you made it," she said, as if arriving at her table were a privilege granted in small, controlled doses. "Take off your coat. Don't catch a chill." Oh, the house was all chrome and white oak and black-framed photographs that looked like magazine ads. No family pictures. No crooked drawings from when she was 7 and insisted on giving Thomas dinosaur teeth. The dining table glittered with stemware and a runner so straight it could cut butter. A roast chicken sat under a silver dome, rosemary tucked like a ribbon around it. A bottle of Chardonnay sweated in a bucket of ice. Grant came in from the kitchen holding a set of leather-bound folders. "Evelyn," he said, giving my name the smoothness of a practiced speech. "How are you feeling? We've been worried." I'm recovering," I said, easing into the chair at the end of the table. No one asked me where I wanted to sit. They had placed a napkin folded into a sharp square at the top right, as if I might need instructions. "Good," he said. "Routine is important. Predictability. We all do better when there's a plan." He poured wine without asking if I wanted any. I watched the pale gold fill the glass. Once, Thomas would have set a slice of lemon by my water and winked. Nobody winks here. We ate in the kind of silence that pretends to be polite. The chicken was perfect. The potatoes fanned out like a deck of cards. Melissa watched me cut my food, her eyes flicking to my hands as if expecting them to forget how a knife works. "Are you keeping up with your prescriptions?" she asked lightly. "Last week, you mixed up Wednesday and Thursday. Remember that?" I kept my gaze on the plate. I remembered the important things. She pushed a smile across the table. "Of course. We just want you safe." And bowed. Grant dabbed his mouth. Even though nothing had touched it. "Evelyn, the paperwork has been a lot. We've been handling most of it to take that stress off you. Oh, adult paperwork is exhausting, Melissa added, as if I were a child up past her bedtime. There's no reason for you to strain your heart over forms. My heart knows what it can carry, I said. Neither of them laughed. Grant set one of the folders beside my plate, just out of reach. We did speak to the hospital while you were under sedation. The physician signed a capacity note. Standard. He smiled like a doctor in a commercial. Your springing power of attorney is activated for a short window. It helped us make decisions while you rested. Oh, I stared at the folder without touching it. Decisions like selling my house? Mom, Melissa said softly. The way people whisper bad news about other people's children. We didn't sell your memories. We secured your future. Stability matters more than ownership at your age. At your age. The words were an index finger pressed to my forehead. The county notice said escrow closes in 72 hours. I replied, whose future is that securing? Grant glanced toward the kitchen, where the clock blinked, stainless steel certainty. We're moving quickly because the market is strong. You'll have options. A quiet senior community where you can make friends. They have a shuttle to the grocery store. No stairs. No yard work safer. A life with rounded corners. A life that made no room for my name on a deed. I took a sip of water that tasted like coins. Where are my things? Packed, Melissa said. We labeled everything. You always said you like things organized. I like choosing what stays. I said, you organized my life the way you organize a drawer. She put her hand over mine. Her nails were pale pink and perfect. Mom, listen. Grief is heavy. It clouds judgment. Dad is gone. The house is too big. We'll take care of everything. They had taken care of everything. The sentence rattled like a drawer with a screw loose. Grant slid the folder closer. Almost affectionately, we had a notary come during your hospital stay. Standard. Again. You initialed in all the right places. It's all above board. Oh. I could hear Ruthie's voice from the porch, the way she'd looked away earlier. The notary's stamp on a moving form, a truck that didn't carry furniture, only files. I kept my face still. I don't remember signing. You were drowsy, Melissa said, as though that were a kindness. And if I don't consent now? Grant smiled with all his teeth. We hate to see families forced into court. But if you resist, your doctor's note can support a petition for guardianship. Temporary, just until things settle. A petition for guardianship. The words found the softest part of my chest and pressed until it ached. I imagined Thomas's hands laying cedar on damp earth. The day we stood in this town with a map and a dream, I imagined him handing me the key with his initials engraved on it. If you ever need to find the truth, Evie, guardianship, I repeated. You'd ask a court to make me a dependent of my daughter. The daughter who just sold my house. Grant shifted his smile a fraction, like a photo going out of focus. Language can feel harsh. The goal is your safety. Oh, Melissa's voice wavered for the first time. Mom, please don't make this harder than it has to be. You mix up days. You forget to eat. You can't carry laundry up the stairs. I'm trying to be the adult here. I felt the napkin under my fingers. It was cotton, but they'd ironed it till it behaved like paper, somewhere in my coat pocket. The key dug into my skin. I thought of the dent on the doorframe where Thomas had dropped his toolbox, of the wind chime with one bell missing, of the crack in the fireplace mortar that he insisted looked like a smile. The house remembered me, even if my own child had chosen to forget. I folded the napkin, not to surrender, but to steady my hands. Being an adult, I said quietly, used to mean telling the truth, not using someone's weakness to tidy your life. Melissa's eyes filled, but she didn't cry. She was too practiced to spill in front of him. I'm telling the truth. This is for your own good. Then why does it help you more than me? I asked. Grant pushed his chair back. We're not going to debate feelings. The process is established. The realtor is handling the open house on Sunday. Escrow is smooth. I'd like this to be dignified. Dignified. The word landed like a paperweight on a bird's wing. He stood and carried plates to the kitchen. Leaving his phone face down by the wine, Melissa reached for mine. But I pulled it a fraction closer and finished what was left on it. The chicken had cooled. It tasted like something I'd remember in a hospital cafeteria. Perfectly adequate. Lovingly explained. Utterly empty. When Grant returned, he set the leather folder on the edge of the table where it wouldn't fall. We'll get you a tour of a few places this week. Lovely grounds. Activities. I have activities, I said. They're called a life. He didn't answer. He picked up his phone, thumbed it awake, and stepped toward the window. I watched his reflection move in the glass tall, composed, as if rehearsing lines he'd delivered to a dozen other families. He pressed call, listened, smiled the way a man smiles at numbers. Then he turned a little, as if he wanted the sentence to land right between my ribs. Yes. Confirmed Sunday open house. Escrow is clean. Not clean enough. I wasn't just opening a safe. I was opening the part of my marriage they couldn't steal. The night I went back to the house, and the town was quiet in that way. Only small towns can be, every porch light glowing like a tiny witness. Every window pretending not to see. I parked 2 blocks away and walked through the drizzle. My coat hood pulled low. The Realtor's flyers still clung to the mailbox. Edges curled from the damp. Open house, Sunday. 1 day left. The lock was new, but the back door's frame was old wood. I'd helped Thomas seal it once with weather stripping. I knew where it would give. The screwdriver slipped once. Then the latch yielded with a whisper. He stood still, listening to the heartbeat of the house faint creaks. A clock ticking where the dining table used to be. Every room felt like a body after a surgery. Stripped, disinfected, unrecognizable. The smell of lemon cleaner was sharp enough to sting. I ran my hand along the hallway wall. Over the faint pencil marks of Melissa's height chart, from 1st to 5th grade, someone had tried to scrub it off. But I could still see the ghosts of the numbers. Thomas, I whispered. I hope you left me more than memories. Ruthie had come that afternoon, slipping me a thermos of coffee and a flashlight. If you're going in, go quiet, she'd said. And if you find what I think you'll find, call Detective Brooks. He owes your husband a favor. Now, standing in the dark. I could almost hear her voice again. I clicked the flashlight on, its beam landing on the rug in front of the old desk. The air still carried that familiar smell, cedar. Dust. A trace of Thomas's aftershave he'd used for decades. I knelt, feeling under the edge of the rug. The floorboard there had always squeaked when you stepped too hard. And Thomas once joked that he'd use it to hide my birthday gifts. My fingers brushed metal, a small keyhole. The safe was still there. The key in my pocket fit perfectly. My hand shook. But it wasn't fear anymore. It was the weight of everything I was about to uncover. The click echoed like a sigh. The door opened to reveal a stack of folders, wrapped in plastic to protect them from moisture. On top lay an envelope, yellowed at the edges, sealed with wax. It read, "For Evelyn. If you ever need to find the truth." I sank to my knees on the cold floor, the flashlight trembling in my grip. The envelope opened cleanly. Inside were 3 things. A copy of the original deed, naming Evelyn Carter as the sole owner. A set of articles of incorporation for something called the Carter Foundation, and a handwritten letter in Thomas's careful script. My eyes blurred before I finished the first line. Evie, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't protect you the way I promised. The world changes when we're not looking. People change. 2. If anyone ever uses your weakness against you, remember your strength was never theirs to sign away. I pressed the paper to my chest. For the first time since he died, I felt him not as an absence but as an instruction. The Carter Foundation file was dated 5 years ago, months before his first heart attack. It included a clause that said, in the event of coercion, fraud, or incapacity of the founder, All assets revert to the foundation for preservation of the widow's rights. Thomas had built me an escape hatch disguised as a legal safeguard. He must have seen something in Melissa, or maybe in Grant, that I hadn't. I took pictures of everything, each page, each signature, the seal, the dates. The more I read, the more the puzzle began to fall into place. The temporary power of attorney Melissa used couldn't override a foundation clause. Legally, the house belonged to me, or to the trust Thomas created for me. Either way, Grant couldn't sell it without committing fraud. Footsteps outside jolted me back. I turned off the flashlight. Heart pounding. Through the slit of the curtain, headlights flashed, someone pulling into the driveway. I ducked low. The car engine idled for a moment, then cut off. I recognized the silhouette before the door opened. Melissa. She stepped out, phone to her ear. Coat pulled tight. Her voice floated through the night. I don't care what she thinks, Grant. If she pushes back, we file the guardianship. She's too fragile to fight. No judge will side with her. I froze. My daughter's voice. Calm. Rehearsed. The same tone she used when she practiced her spelling words at 8. Sitting cross-legged on that same porch. Just make sure the notary doesn't talk, she said, turning toward the house. After Sunday, none of this matters. The front doorknob rattled. I slipped into the pantry and waited. She walked through the kitchen, humming. My flashlight beam was tucked into my sleeve, dimmed to a pinhole. She stopped in front of the safe, now open but shadowed. My breath hitched. She didn't notice. She picked up a mug from the counter, drank, and sighed. Then she left quietly, like someone who already believed they owned the silence. When the sound of her car faded, I let out a shaky breath. The house creaked again, the old timbers settling like a body exhaling. I gathered the files, sealed them back into a plastic sleeve, and tucked them into my coat. The key I left in the safe, it had served its purpose. Outside, the air had turned colder. Ruthie's porch light blinked twice our signal from when she used to watch for Thomas on late shifts. I walked across the wet street, my shoes heavy with mud. Ruthie opened the door before I could knock. You found it? She whispered. I nodded and handed her the phone. Take these photos. Send them to Detective Brooks. Tell him it's elder fraud. Forged notary. Maybe coercion. He'll know what to do. Oh. She scrolled through the pictures, her breath catching when she saw the claws. He really planned this for you. He planned it for when I'd stopped believing in myself, I said. Ruthie's eyes softened. What are you going to do now? I looked toward the glow of my house across the street, the Realtor's sign glistening under the lamplight. I'm going to stop asking for permission to live. Oh. The next morning, I sat in the diner off Main Street, waiting for Detective Brooks. He arrived with a folder of his own, and that weary kindness lawmen get after too many years of seeing families eat each other alive. Thomas was a good man, he said after I explained everything. I owed him one. You did right calling me. He looked through the photos, nodding slowly. Fake notary. Springing POA. Fast escrow. It's textbook. I can freeze it if I verify the deed. Oh? You have 72 hours. I said, less now. He smiled. A little impressed. Then let's make it count. By the time I stepped back into the gray morning, the clouds had thinned. Somewhere beneath the wet soil, the roots of Thomas's lilac bush were still holding on. I thought about the house, the walls, the echoes of every promise I'd made inside them. For the first time, the pain didn't feel like defeat. It felt like fuel. That night, Brooks called. Escrow's on hold pending investigation. He said, You bought yourself time? Evelyn, use it. Oh. I hung up and turned toward the window. My reflection stared back older, worn, but unmistakably alive. Tomorrow, the house would open to strangers again. But this time, I wouldn't be locked out. You're trespassing. Mom, Melissa said. But she didn't know I was walking into the one place where every lie she told was about to unravel. By noon on Sunday, the front yard looked like a festival for people who loved other people's lives. Balloons bobbed on the signpost, and a folding table offered paper cups of coffee and a pyramid of sugar cookies. The realtor had set a Bluetooth speaker on the porch light jazz, just enough to make the house feel like it belonged to everyone and no one. Cars lined the curb. Strangers stepped carefully over the welcome mat Thomas picked out because he said the pattern looked like braided rope, something that holds. I walked up the path with my shoulders back. The air smelled like fresh paint and brew drip. My coat hid a plastic sleeve tucked against my ribs, a copy of the original deed, the foundation papers, and the photos Brooks asked me to carry, just in case. He'd said he'd be there, but not as a detective. Let me watch them lie. He'd told me. Then we take the ground out from under their feet. Inside, people padded over the floors in socked feet, murmuring about light and resale value. The fireplace wore a new coat of whitewash that couldn't hide the small smile-shaped crack in the mortar. A toddler pressed sticky hands to the dining room window and giggled at his reflection. His mother apologized to the realtor, who tensed and then pretended not to mind. The realtor's sleek ponytail, black suit, lips the color of cherries, pushed a clipboard toward me. "Sign in, please." I won't be staying long," I said. "Look who's here." Melissa called from the kitchen, voice pitched high and bright. She crossed the room with the kind of smile designed for photos. "Mom, I asked you not to come." It's an open house," I said. "Consider me open." Her jaw tightened the way mine used to when she broke curfew. "You're making this difficult." "Oh, I'm clarifying ownership." Grant appeared from the hallway. A salesman's calm poured into a blue suit. "Evelyn," he said, as if greeting a client who'd wandered in off the wrong street. "We've got 30 minutes till the first serious buyer arrives. If you want to avoid a scene, now would be a good time." Scenes happen when the truth is impolite," I said. He angled his body to block my view of the legal pads on the counter. "Let's talk privately." No. I told him, and felt the word anchor me to the floorboards. Thomas laid with his own hands. "Let's talk where the walls can hear." A man I hadn't noticed before drifted closer, studying the crown molding as though it might confess a secret. He wore a soft gray sport coat and ordinary shoes, the kind of ordinary that disappears. When our eyes met, he gave the slightest nod. "Brooks, lovely home," he said to Grant, voice friendly as a neighbor. "Who's the current owner on record?" "Reed Holdings, LLC." Grant answered without blinking. "We're consolidating assets, hence the quick sale." "Ooh." I stepped into the space between them. "Funny," I said, letting the syllables settle. "Because the county says otherwise." The room cooled. Even the jazz on the porch sounded farther away. A woman holding a cookie glanced from my face to Grant's, then slipped the cookie back onto the napkin as if it no longer belonged to her either. "Mom," Melissa hissed, fingers closing around my elbow. "Please." I eased my arm free. "Please." "What? Please forget how to read my own name?" Grant flashed a smile too broad to be real. "Folks, let's give the family a moment." He steered us toward the breakfast nook, the one Thomas built, so we could drink morning coffee and watch the lake silver over with light. The realtor positioned herself like a human screen, herding potential buyers down the hallway with routines about natural light and original charm. Brooks stayed within earshot, admiring the trim. "Evelyn," Grant said softly, "this is exactly what we wanted to avoid. Discomfort, confusion. If you'll trust me, I'll make sure you land somewhere comfortable." I don't land," I said. "I live." Melissa's smile cracked. "You're going to make us look cruel." You don't need my help for that." Her eyes flashed. Then she gathered herself, smoothing the air with her palm. "Mom, the doctor's note says you were impaired. Temporary. It's okay." We stepped in. It's what children do. I slid the plastic sleeve from inside my coat and set it on the table. Just as a dealer lays down a final card. And this is what husbands do. They plan for who their wives really are. Grant didn't reach for the papers. He didn't have to. He'd already memorized the way power looks. Fake, he said. Almost kindly. Printed to frighten you less. We can arrange a tour of a beautiful community for you by Wednesday. Garden paths. A shuttle. Your shuttle won't carry my name, I said. He glanced past me to the front window. Calculating angles. Traffic. Witnesses. And the price of delay. Evelyn, he repeated. Jan plashtil. The way a man might talk to a dog who knows only one trick. This is all above board. Brooks's voice floated in, warm as a passing comment. Above board is my favorite board. Mind if I take a look? Grant looked him up and down. And you are? Interested, Brooks said. He picked up the top page, eyes traveling the text with the lazy ease of a man reading a menu. Original deed, owner of record, Evelyn Carter. He let the paper fall back into place as if it had burned. Ava renting. The realtor's phone buzzed. She answered and turned her back. I saw her shoulders go rigid, then melt with a smile that didn't quite reach the edges. She handed the phone to Grant. It's for you. He lifted it to his ear. Make it quick. While he listened, Melissa leaned toward me. Voice needle thin. What are you doing? Why won't you let me help you? Because every time you help me, I have less of a life. I said, help that makes me smaller isn't help. Grant's smile vanished one tooth at a time. He lowered the phone. For a second, I thought he might throw it. Then he placed it gently on the counter as if it were a fragile thing he didn't own. They froze the account, he said. The realtor inhaled. Someone in the hallway dropped a cup. The jazz cut off mid-saxophone. What did you do? Melissa asked. The question coming out as a child's prayer and a prosecutor's charge all at once. I remembered who taught me strength. When your own child calls you delusional, you either break or you burn the bridge and walk through the fire alone. The next morning, the sky hung low and gray, swollen with unshed rain. I sat outside the courthouse with a folder clutched to my chest. The same one that once carried Thomas's blueprints for our house. This time, it held blueprints of a different kind proof. Signatures. And the truth that had cost me my peace. Detective Brooks had asked me to come in early. They'll want to talk before it goes public, he'd said, Grant scrambling to save himself. Let him dig the hole deeper. When I stepped into the law office Grant had chosen for mediation, the air felt pre-filtered extraordinary, expensive, and stripped of humanity. Everything gleamed. The conference room was framed in glass, with a long table that looked like it could double as an operating table. Melissa stood at the far end, her back straight. A silk scarf looped perfectly at her neck. Grant stood beside her, a human wall dressed in confidence. Mom, Melissa said, voice soft but brittle. We're here to work this out quietly. Oh, quiet doesn't mean right, I said. Grant gestured to the seat across from them. Sit down. Evelyn, we'll get through this in 10 minutes if we all act like adults. I've been an adult longer than you've been alive, I said, taking the chair. The lawyer entered, a man who looked like he'd been born wearing cufflinks. Let's begin, he said. This is a voluntary family resolution meeting. Our goal is to avoid escalation. Avoid escalation. That phrase has been the anthem of every woman told to stay silent for the sake of peace. Grant slid a folder toward me. We've prepared an agreement. You'll retain a monthly allowance, medical coverage, and a small trust fund. In exchange, you'll rescind your claim to the property and drop the report. Oh, the lawyer added, this ensures financial stability for all parties. I didn't touch the folder. You mean it ensures your lifestyle? Oh, Melissa flinched. Mom? Please, you don't understand how complicated. I understand perfectly. I interrupted. You sold the house your father built and called it mercy. Oh. Her jaw trembled. We were trying to protect you. Oh, from what? Having a home? Grant exhaled hard through his nose, like a teacher out of patience. Evelyn, you're being emotional. Let's keep this civil. I smiled, and it startled him. Civil? You forged my name on a notary form? Grant, you took advantage of a woman on morphine. Oh? His face didn't change, but his hand twitched once before settling. You have no proof. I opened my folder and slid a single page across the table. You're right. I don't. But the county recorder does. And so does the detective standing outside that door. Oh. Melissa's eyes widened. You didn't. The door opened before she could finish. Detective Brooks stepped in, calm as a man arriving late to church. Morning, he said. I'm here to observe. We have questions about a notary connected to Reed Holdings. The lawyer straightened. Detective, this is a private beat. Not anymore, Brooks said, dropping a small stack of photocopies onto the table. State of Oregon. Penal Code 165. Ling T. Fraudulent notarization and elder exploitation. Ring a bell. Mr. Reed? Grant stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. You can't just... Brooks cut him off. Sit down, or I'll add obstruction to your list. For a heartbeat. No one moved. Melissa's hand went to her mouth. The sound of the rain tapping the glass filled the silence. Brooks flipped one page toward her. Your husband used a notary who's already confessed. You signed the transfer forms under false pretenses. That means the escrow's not just frozen, it's void. Melissa shook her head, tears spilling before she could stop them. I didn't know I finally spoke, my voice steady but not cruel. You knew enough to let him. Grant's face turned a dangerous red. You planned this? You set me up. Brooks gave a short laugh. No, Mr. Reed. You set yourself up the moment you thought her age made her defenseless. Oh. The lawyer began to gather his papers in silent defeat. Brooks continued, reading from his notes. Mr. Reed, you're under arrest for forgery, fraud, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. He recited the Miranda rights as the room tilted toward chaos. Grant's voice cracked into shouting. Melissa, say something. Tell them your mother's confused. She's always been confused. Melissa looked at me. Her mascara had bled into the soft skin beneath her eyes. Mom, is it true? Did you do all this just to punish me? I wanted to hate her, but all I could see was the little girl who used to hide behind her father's legs during thunderstorms. I swallowed the ache. No, Melissa, I did it to save the part of you that still knows what right feels like. Brooks motioned to the officers waiting by the door. Grant was cuffed, his polished shoes scuffing against the tile as they led him out. The sound of the cuffs clicking shut was sharper than thunder cold. Exact. Final. Melissa crumpled into the chair beside me. I didn't think it would go this far, she whispered. It already went too far, I said softly. You just stopped walking before the cliff. She covered her face. I wanted to make life easier. You always worked so hard. I thought if I took the house, you'd finally rest. I don't rest when things are stolen in my name, I said, and I don't heal in silence. Brooks placed a hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing. Evelyn, the deed's back in your name. The court will restore full ownership by the end of the week. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Not because of victory, but because of the emptiness that followed it. Justice never feels like joy. It feels like standing in the ashes and realizing you survived. Melissa looked at me through tears. How can you even look at me after this? Because I remember the girl who used to love truth more than comfort. I said, I'm hoping she's still in there. She reached for my hand, hesitated, then let it fall back. When I stood to leave, the lawyer held the door open, silent and pale. Outside, the storm had broken. Rain came down in soft sheets, washing the courthouse steps clean. Brooks walked me to the curb. Where will you go? He asked. Home, I said. but not to live in it to protect what it means. He nodded. If everyone fought this smart, I'd be out of a job. I smiled faintly. You'd still have plenty to do. People forget. Women remember. I looked back at the glass building behind me. Through the reflection, I saw Melissa still sitting there, her hands empty. Her scarf loosened like a truce she didn't yet know how to make. Some bridges burn quietly, others light the way home. When I walked back into the house for the first time, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like silence waiting to be answered. The floors still bore the faint scuffs from other people's shoes, the ones who'd come to buy what was never for sale. The smell of lemon polish lingered like a lie. I took off my coat. I hung it on the hook. Thomas carved decades ago, and just stood there, listening. For months, I'd fought for this roof, these walls, this name on the deed. But what I'd really been fighting for was myself, the woman everyone thought had grown too soft to stand. The light through the window fell across the old fireplace, catching the tiny crack in the mortar. I traced it with my finger and whispered, "We're still standing. Tom, you and me both." Later that afternoon, Ruthie came by carrying a pie. She didn't ask if she could come in. She never had to. "It looks smaller," she said, looking around the freshly scrubbed living room. "It's not smaller," I told her. "It's honest again." She set the pie on the counter and squeezed my hand. "You scared them good?" "Evelyn." I didn't want to scare them. I said, "I wanted them to see." "Oh, to see what?" "That I'm not invisible?" "Not yet." We ate in the kitchen. The same one where I used to pack Melissa's lunches, turkey sandwiches with the crust cut off. I remembered how she'd complain if I forgot to slice the apple thinly. Funny how the smallest acts of love become invisible to the ones who receive them. By evening, the house was quiet again. I poured myself a cup of tea and went out to the porch. The air smelled like wet cedar and forgiveness. Across the street, the sun dipped behind the trees, turning the sky a deep honey gold. I could almost hear Thomas's laugh drifting through the dusk. That warm, steady sound that once anchored my world. That night, I found myself sitting in his old chair with his work notebook on my lap. The leather was cracked, the pages thin from years of use. On the last page, written in his slow, deliberate script, was one line I'd never noticed before. "Love isn't what you give away, it's what you protect." I closed the book and let the tears come. For months, I'd been angry at Melissa, at Grant, even at myself. But anger had kept me alive long enough to find the truth. And truth, once uncovered, doesn't always destroy. Sometimes it repairs. The next morning, Melissa showed up unannounced. She stood on the porch in a plain sweater, with no makeup and no husband. Her eyes looked older, stripped of defense. "Mom?" she said softly. "Can I come in?" For a moment, he hesitated. Then I opened the door. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd signed her school forms, baked her birthday cakes, and later found the forged power of attorney that nearly cost me everything. She stared at her hands. "I don't expect you to forgive me." "Oh, good," I said, "because forgiveness isn't a request, it's a decision." "Auntie," she nodded. "I thought I was helping. Grant said we were securing your future." I didn't see what he was really doing until it was too late. I sipped my tea, watching her face. People show us who they are when they think we're too tired to notice. Her chin trembled. "I lost my job. The company cut ties after the arrest. I'm staying with a friend." I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "But losing what doesn't belong to you can be the first honest thing that happens in a long time." "I sin." She looked up, eyes wet. "How do I fix this?" "You start by not hiding behind someone else's strength. You stand up and build your own." For the first time in years. She didn't argue. She just nodded, quiet and small. Then, almost in a whisper, "Dad would be proud of you." Oh, that caught me off guard. I pressed my lips together, feeling the old ache return. He'd be proud of us both if we remember why he built this house. Not for comfort. For character? Melissa left before sunset. When the door closed behind her, I stood there for a long moment, listening to the echo fade. The air inside felt lighter, not healed, but breathable. Later, I drove out to the lake, the one Thomas and I used to visit every spring. The water was still, the surface rippling just enough to catch the reflection of the house lights behind me. I threw a pebble into the lake and watched the circles spread outward. That's what truth does. It ripples. It doesn't stop where you drop it. It touches everything around it. I thought about all the women I'd met in the hospital where I worked for 40 years. Wives, mothers, grandmothers who'd lost pieces of themselves in the name of love, who called control care and silence peace. I wished I could tell everyone about them what I'd learned. You are not too old to be betrayed, but you are never too weak to rise again. When I got home, I opened the front door and felt warmth rush toward me, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint creak of the stairs, the heartbeat of a home that had survived both neglect and greed. I placed Thomas's photo back on the mantle. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was talking to a ghost. "Thank you for believing I could do this," I whispered. The wind outside shifted, brushing the curtains against my arm, light and sure. As if answering back, that night, I slept without locking the door, because some things, once reclaimed, don't need guarding anymore. And in the morning, when I woke to the sound of birds and distant laughter from Ruthie's porch, I knew this story wasn't just mine. It belonged to anyone who's ever had to fight for what love was supposed to protect. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever been told you were too emotional, too fragile, or too late, remember this: dignity has no expiration date. So tell me, have you ever been betrayed by the people you loved most? If this story reached you, comment 1 to let me know you're still here. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, subscribe to Auntie Tales, because every scar has a voice, and every woman deserves to speak hers.